Hey guys, welcome back to Toy Shop. Today we're gonna start restoring this old Moto 4 200. All right, so in the last video we got this thing running really good actually. It's got a fresh top end in it, new piston rings, new cam, intake valve, timing chain. The top end of this motor is super fresh and really the plastic's in pretty good shape. The side panels are kind of the worst parts of it. I think we're gonna restore this thing. I'm gonna take it all the way down to the frame. We're gonna get it sandblasted and painted, and then we're going to probably tear the motor all the way back apart so we can repaint all the cases. I want this thing looking as close to brand new as I can, so this is going to be a little bit of a project. All right, we got it all the way down to the frame. Pretty much what we're going to do is probably do the frame first, kind of get that looking good and shiny, and then we'll just start taking one thing at a time and work on getting that good and shiny, and then slowly start putting it on the frame and start building a four-wheeler like that. As I was tearing it apart, my girlfriend made lovely doodles. I just started writing stuff down that I knew I needed as I went, so I'd try not to forget anything. So I'm gonna go through all this. Let's start getting this organized. All right, so I got the frame staged here because what I wanna do right now, before I take this out and pressure wash it and stuff, I'm gonna go through all of these, pretty much anywhere on the frame that is threaded. I wanna go through and chase it all with a tap or thread chaser and just make sure that everything's all right. But I've got the whole pile of the rest of the four-wheeler there. Got the motor sitting on the bench here. This will get tore down probably once we start getting the chassis pretty close to being done. Just because I know this already runs, this just needs tore down, made look pretty, put back together and put on the machine. So, and then this is what I did with all the hardware bolts, is I took the time and just added all of these to cardboard. What I had done was when I was at Harbor Freight last time, about these things right here, these are just hole punches that you hit with a hammer. Bought those at Harbor Freight. But I pretty much laid everything out, hole punched every single hole, because if you look at the back of this, they're all stuck through all the way. And then for the nuts and washers, I took a piece of rebar wire. I keep rebar wire here at the garage because you never know what you want to tie up. We'll be using that a lot as we paint parts. But I just kind of stuck a straight piece of rebar wire in the cardboard to put the nut and washers on. But if this was the motor, I wouldn't need to do this because I could put stuff in bags and pretty much know where everything is. But for the chassis, there's so many little different bolts and stuff that it was just easier to know exactly where stuff went. The only thing I would probably do differently was I tore everything apart, laid everything out on the bench, and then did this afterwards. I would probably build this as I go, as I tear the chassis apart on the four-wheeler, just to make life that much easier. But other than that, these are all our chassis bolts. All the motor bolts are still on the motor. And yeah, we got the frame. So we're gonna go through, chase all the nuts on this, on the frame. Then we're gonna take it outside. We're gonna purple power it, try to get a lot of this crap off of here. That's when this stuff here comes in. All right, so we got all the holes chased on this, and actually all of them look good. Some of the ones that were a little bit cross-threaded, I ended up getting straightened out with a tap, and it looks like there's enough meat there that it should be fine with the original bolt in it. All right, so I just got done pressure washing this thing, and I just took the air hose and blew it all off. I'm sure you can hear the air compressor running right now. I got it pretty much degreased everywhere. So I wanted to make this makeshift outdoors sandblaster thing. I've got our tent from the house, which I already bought a new tent for us to go camping in. So I'm using our old tent as kind of an outside sandblast cabinet. And then we're gonna try this right here from Harbor Freight. I bought 50 pounds of blast media. So we're gonna put this in here and we're gonna sandblast inside that. So let's get the tent set up. We'll get the frame inside it. We're gonna put our face mask on and we're gonna try this. All right, so the whole bright idea on this is basically, when I get done sandblasting this, I can just take the shop vac and kind of sweep everything up, but it's still gonna be ventilated, so it's not gonna be so bad. The only thing I wish I thought about before right now was I wish I had like a paint suit, just so I don't get sand all over my clothes and stuff. But regardless, I don't think it'll be too bad with the vents open in the tent. What we're gonna do is we're gonna drag the air hose out there with this little sandblaster thing. I'm gonna get my face mask and goggles on, and we're gonna step in there and kind of half zip ourselves back up and see if we can get this thing ready for paint. All right, so pretty much got it all sandblasted. The big thing I wanted to use a sandblaster for was to kind of get all the tricky stuff, like the weld seams and then to kind of just give everything a good etching. Now that I got pretty much all the tricky stuff sandblasted, what I'm gonna do now is go over it with some like 220 sandpaper on all the tubes and stuff. It's easy to sand and get it prepped a little bit better. And then after that, we're gonna blow it off quick and we're gonna prime it. All right, so I already got the tent put away, but what I ended up doing was the shop vac worked really good to get it vacuumed up. I did end up butchering this end right here, put 3 holes in it, and then I kind of went to town on it with a hacksaw, cut some V's in it, but that's the only way I could get it to not completely suck up the floor of the tent and then just be a pain in the butt. But sucked it into here, and then from here I would just dump it right back into there. I ended up doing it twice, and that ended up getting me to this point, at least good enough for the first prime coat, and then we'll kind of reassess there, make sure nothing's flaky or anything like that. But I'm gonna give this a quick wipe down with some acetone on a rag, and then we're gonna start using some self-etching primer I bought. I know this is more for bare steel, but maybe it'll kind of help etch it on the joints or the seams and stuff where the welds are. We're gonna probably try to give it 2 light coats everywhere that I can reach, minus the bottom right there. And then we'll kind of go over it. If I need to address some certain areas with the sandpaper, I'll do that. Yeah, let's get this thing painted. All right, so I got a couple coats of primer on this. I'm by no means a body man, so I'm just trying to do the best I can here. But I sprayed this with, I've got like 2 coats of etching primer on this. And I've had really good luck with this paint before. I know I did some dirt bike wheels and I sandblasted them and then I self-etch primered them. And then I shot them with just spray paint black, and the rims still look really good. So I'm hoping this will last like a decent amount of time. I've got it all primed. What I'm gonna do is go over it now with some Scotch-Brite and kind of just scuff up some of the edges. If I find a run or something, I'll try to smooth that out a little bit. But other than that, we're gonna scuff it up a little bit, blow it off with air, and then start painting it black. All right, you can kind of see where it's like brighter than other spots. That's where I hit with the Scotch-Brite. The VIN number here, I don't really know what I'm gonna do. I might just kind of leave it like that, paint over it with black, and then just Scotch-Brite it off again so you can still see it. I'd rather see the VIN than not see the VIN. Now I'm just gonna kind of go over it with a clean rag, wipe everything off that I just hit, and then I'm gonna blow it off with air, start to paint it black. I had this primer sitting for a week, I think. That's how long it had to dry. So I hit it last weekend and then I haven't really touched it till now. So I'm gonna finish getting this wiped off and blown off, and then we're gonna paint it black. All right, so I got the frame painted and it is drying right now. So what I'm gonna do in the meantime is I wanna get the rear diff disassembled. I'm gonna get it sandblasted and painted because I wanna try to get this wheeler back to at least rolling. So we gotta start with the rear end, I guess. And I got it most of the way disassembled just from when we tore it apart, but let's finish tearing it apart. All right. All right, so I got the drain plugs out of it. All the bearings are out of it. I tried to pull this out, but I kind of squeezed it and squished it, so this is really thin. So I think this is just gonna end up getting painted black, even though it's supposed to be silver. I don't wanna hurt it, ruin it. I don't know if I can get another one. Other than that, I'm going to get this and this scrubbed up, and then we're gonna sandblast both of them. All right, so I got all this cleaned up. I parts washed everything, and then I sprayed everything off with carburetor cleaner because the parts washer leaves kind of an oily residue on it. So the carburetor cleaner takes the parts washer off and it kind of air dries really nice. So all of these pieces are all cleaned up. I'm gonna sandblast both of these with the coarser media. And then I'm gonna put in glass bead media and see if I can't make this shine up. It'll be my first time trying it, so let's see how it works. I ended up pulling all the studs out of this face here so I can mask this off nicely. But I've got this bearing race in here kind of masked off with a rag shoved in it. And then I'm gonna hang this by this, but I have that side masked off too. So this is ready to be primed. And then I got this piece here sandblasted. I'm going to prime this, and then while this is drying, I'm gonna switch out the media in the sandblaster so we can try to make this shiny. So I've done a little playing since that last part. I've got this painted. I did 2 coats of primer, etching primer, and then I spray painted it with Rust-Oleum gloss enamel. This came out good. I kept all the paint out of the things that shouldn't have paint. So that turned out nice. And this here, I did bead blast it, but bead blasting was going to take a really long time. It's definitely not the same as vapor blasting. So what I did was I had purchased these Scotch-Brite wheels from Cameron Niemela. I don't know how to say his name. He's a YouTuber. He's the one with the dirt bikes. So I bought this off of him, and I ended up polishing most all of this centerpiece with that everywhere that I could get, except for like some of the tight cracks, like right around here. So I got as close as I could to all the features, but what I couldn't get, then I bead blasted just to kind of help blend it in so it all kind of looks shiny. I think it looks pretty good. And then I had also watched Cameron's show, and I had purchased this zinc plating kit. So I've been playing around with that. I don't want to show you guys that yet until I get it figured out, but it's putting a nice clean zinc coat on it again. I'm pretty sure Caswell didn't send me any zinc brightener, so I have to polish these every time. I'm getting plating on them nonetheless, and I've got the stuff I need coming. So as we get to some more of the maybe more noticeable bolts, it will be a little bit better. I'm not looking to fully restore this. Like, this has some pitting on it, and I'm not really worried about filling in the pits. I mean, as long as the bolt is still usable, we're still gonna use it. I mainly did this so that they wouldn't rust, because I don't wanna do all this painting and polishing and stuff and then have these bolts rust or start to look like that within like 2 weeks. All right, so we got her all back together. It actually looks super good with these replated bolts. All right, so it's been a little while since this has been in here, so I'm kind of forgetting how it went. Now I think we're ready to slide the axle in. I got the axle all cleaned up, and I got grease on the splines, and this should just slide in, I'm hoping. All right, got up to where that big bearing starts to go in the axle and started to stop. So we're gonna stick a 2x4, I think, on the end of this axle, try to tap it. So we're just gonna thread this first one on, snug it up, jam the second one on it, and then we're gonna be all set. All right, sweet. So the axle and rear diff are all done. Got all the hardware so far zinc plated, and it's pretty much ready for the brake assembly that goes on this side now. It looks like we're gonna have to start doing some sandblasting on some shields and a bunch of stuff. Basically everything inside this cover here needs done. All right, so I pretty much got all the brake stuff here. We got both halves of our shield, our disc. We've got our caliper assembly here. This bracket here I forgot about. I was digging through the stuff and I was like, I think this goes on the rear end. The diff bolts here. This bolts to the frame here and here, and the front of the rear diff bolts here. But while I'm painting and sandblasting and stuff, I want to paint and sandblast this. So we're going to polish these 2 aluminum pieces, zinc plate this stuff, paint this, and this I'm just going to try to clean up. My power supply is not strong enough to zinc plate this whole thing. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to just clean up this here and see if there's much plating left on it, or if it's just going to rust into a ball when I'm done. If it's just going to rust, then I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, I guess. All right, so I've got all the painted stuff done. So this is ready to go back on the quad. I got this kind of all Scotch-Brited up and stuff, so it's not very rusty. I don't really know how I want to prep this so it doesn't rust, but it's not rusty now. I don't really know if I'm gonna be able to get away from that because I don't want to have to mask off all of this just to paint the middle here. So I think we're just sticking it on the way it is. I've got these polished up as good as I want them to be. I pulled these studs out because I'm gonna zinc plate those. I got this here polished up halfway decent. I didn't get new seals for this. I'm just gonna use what they had. All it's supposed to do is just keep crap out of there, so it's not like it's gonna hold oil in. I'm not gonna put new seals in that because these ones look good enough. And then I just cleaned up the brake pads on this because they seem fine. They were just dirty. So the brake pads cleaned up pretty good. Now, I was playing with the zinc plating and I still don't have it 100% figured out, but I've got it good enough to where I don't think it's gonna rust. So I've got everything here kind of plated up, and I think we're gonna start putting it back together. These little Phillips head screws were what held these 3 bolts in here and those 3 bolts there. I've got these little bolts here. I'm just gonna put new ones in and make them 8mm hex, just because that's better anyways. These little nuts that went on the studs that go in there, the nuts were kind of crappy and not all even, so I've got new nuts here, so we're just going to replace those instead of trying to save them. I think we're ready to start putting this together on there. All right, I got these bolts here that have the fancy little washer things on them. Stuff this other brake pad in here. So I'm waiting on the studs to finish zinc plating, but there's a hole in the cover here, and I think we can just slap this on here, and I think we can do all of that while this is on here. So I'm gonna work on that. All right, so while we're waiting for that, we're gonna get this kind of done up a little bit. So I'm just gonna grease up these little teeth. Then right around this base here where it's going to go through the seal on the other side. All right, so that's in there. Now we gotta put this other seal in. That's on there, that looks good. Now this little pusher pad goes in this side. And this arm's gonna go on here, but we can't do that until this bolt is done plating. So other than that, we're pretty much done until we get the stuff out of the zinc tank. Pretty sure that goes there on those 2. So the brake cable can get pulled here. So we're gonna put the 2 long studs here and the 1 short one there. All right, so those are in. So I'm gonna stick this on here. All right, so until I get brake cables, I can only go so far on this, but I'm gonna kind of twist it out until I can get this on here. All right, so right now I can't really turn this in anymore by hand. And if I grab the axle and try to twist it, the brake's engaged. So I want to back this up a little bit. So now I've got about that much free play. If I squeeze, it should stop us. So if I let go, so that would be no brake and then brake. Until I get brake cables, that's about as close as I can get it. I'm going to jam this nut up so it's tight. But other than that, we got the back brakes together on this. So that last part right there, everything I said was right, except for the fact I had this on backwards. I had it on this way. So most of it was offset this way and not this way. So make sure you put it this way, the little doohickey indicator things there. Other than that, the rear end is done, except for hubs and rims and back tires. But it has been a month since I posted my last video. So I think we're gonna leave the rest of the 4-wheeler for another time. If you guys have liked this, consider following me on Patreon. The link for that's down in the description. You can help out by buying me a can of carburetor cleaner, because I use a lot of carburetor cleaner on these projects, and that would mean a lot to me. I'm gonna get to work on painting the hubs and then starting to work on the rest of this. But until next time, peace.